Cambridge IGCSE, February-March 2020, Paper 42. Solutions for question 6 to 12. Question 6 is from the topic Waves. Part A. Figure 6.1 shows crest of a water wave moving from left to right in a harbour. On figure 6.1, draw 3 more crests to the right of the point A. So, there is a water wave which is moving and its direction is given. It's moving from left to right. So, this is the direction of water wave which is already given. And you need to draw the next 3 more crests. The point after A and point is here. So, you need to draw 3 more crests and you can see these straight lines are the crests. So, the next 3 crests will be at equidistance away. So, you need to measure this length using a ruler, and at the same distance away you have to draw straight lines. As it's mentioned 3, you should draw 3 straight parallel lines, and the distance between these crests, that is nothing but the wavelength, should be same as the previous distance. And as the bending after point A, you can see there is no more harbour wall, so that the water wave will bend after point A. And this is due to the diffraction of water waves, because after harbour wall there is a bending, so that the water will bend at this edge. Part 2. State the name of the wave process that occurs as the wave passes point A. As wave passes point A, we have seen the waves are bending, and this bending of water wave is called diffraction. So here you need to write down diffraction. Next, part B. Figure 6.2 shows the crest of another wave moving from left to right in a different part of the harbour. This wave moves from deep water to shallow water. On figure 6.2, draw an arrow to show the direction of the movement of the wave after it has passed into a shallow water. So here you can see the initial movement of water is from again left to right, but when it's entered in the shallow water, its direction changes. Now you need to show, or you need to draw an arrow to show the direction of the movement of the wave after it has passed into the shallow water. In order to draw the direction, what you need to do is you have to draw a perpendicular line from the crest. As you can see the crest, draw a perpendicular line. And this, put it as an arrow, and this is the direction of the water wave in shallow water. So perpendicular line means it should be 90 degree. It should make 90 degree with the wave front or crest. So this 90 degree arrow is indicating the direction of the movement of the wave in shallow water. So you need to draw only this arrow. And in the question they have mentioned simply draw an arrow. So this is the correct direction. Second part, state the name of the process that occurs as the wave passes into shallow water. As the bending of wave, you can see it's when it's traveling from one type of medium to another type. Even though it's water waves, one is deep water and another one is shallow. So this process of bending the wave is called refraction. So here you need to write down refraction in order to score 1 mark. Last part of the question. Complete table 6.1 to state whether each of the properties of the wave increases, decreases, or stays the same as the wave passes into the shallow water. So as we have already seen, the wave is traveling from deep water to shallow water. So what will happen to its wavelength, frequency and speed? One important point you need to know is when a wave is traveling from one medium to another medium, its frequency will remain same. Whether it's a water wave or light wave or any other wave, the frequency will remain always same. So here for a frequency, you can write down it will remain same. Next, what will happen to the wavelength? Let's look at the figure again. As a water wave traveling or moving from deep water to shallow water, you can see what happens to the lambda or wavelength. Wavelength is nothing but the distance between two consecutive crusts, and this wavelength is the wavelength, this part represents the wavelength of water wave in deep water, and this distance represents the wavelength of water wave in shallow water. And you can see down that the shallow water lambda or the wavelength in shallow water is lesser. So that we can conclude when the water wave moves from deep water to shallow water, as you can see, its wavelength will decrease as the space between the crusts are decreasing. So here you need to write down wavelength decrease. Now you need to check what will happen to speed. Here you need to know the wave equation. That wave equation is speed or velocity is equal to the product of wavelength and frequency. And here you have already seen frequency remains same but the wavelength decreases, so that the speed will decrease. As the RHS of an equation is decreasing, LHS of the equation also will reduce. So you should write speed also decreases. Let's go to next question, that is question number 7. Question 7 is from the topic lenses. Figure 7.1 shows a converging lens and the image I formed when an image is placed to the left of the lens. The principal focus are labeled as A and B and the center of the lens is labeled C. On figure 7.1, draw two rays to locate the position of the object. Draw the object and label it O. So here A and B are the principal focus. So you can take the ruler and you can measure the length from C to B or A to C, which should represent same length and which is nothing but principal focus. And you can see the image is somewhere even after 2F. You can again take the ruler and take the distance. If from C to D is F, again C to somewhere else you will get F, and beyond 2F. So this total length represents 2F. So you can identify the image has formed beyond 2F or double of the focal length. In order to get an image at this point, that is beyond 2F, you need to keep the object even before 2F length at the left side of the lens, so that again the same equal dense length you have to measure. So this will be something representing 2F, and somewhere behind 2F you need to keep an object. So suppose this is the object. So I am removing unwanted drawings. This is just you need to know that the object must be somewhere behind 2F length, as the image has formed somewhere after 2F length. So now we can draw the two lines. The first line should be coming from the object is a straight line to the principal axis or parallel to the principal axis, so that after passing through the lens, it will pass through the principal focus and it will move straight. So it is supposed to be a straight line. And next you can draw the line. So you need to draw the arrow as the ray is coming from object. The direction should be like this. Next arrow you can draw, or next ray you can draw, which is directly passing through the center, so that it won't diffract or it won't deviate. And it also should be straight line, as there is no bending, it will be straight line, so that you will get the image at this point. And here also you need to put the arrow. This is very important. So in the question they have asked you to draw only two rays. So we have drawn two rays and this is the object. Now let's go to next question, next part. Ring all the following distances that are equal to the focal length of the lens. So in the question it's already mentioned B and A are principal focus. So the distance from the center of the lens to this B and to A represent focal length. And it is nothing but AC here, and here it's represent the length of CB. So here you have to circle these two lengths. That is AC and CB must be representing focal length. Focal length is nothing but the distance from the center of the lens to the principal focus. Figure 7.2 shows green light passing through a triangular glass block. Red light enters the triangular glass block shown in figure 7.2 along the same path as the green light. On figure 7.2, draw the path of red light within the triangular glass block. So here already it's given path of green light has shown when it is enter, it's bending, it's then again it's moving out of the prism. Now you have to draw the path when the red light enters in the same path. So initially the red light is also coming in the same path, but when it enters inside the prism, the red light will also refract as say like green, but the refraction will be less. Amount of refraction or amount of bending of red light will be less than the bending of green light. This is due to the frequency of red is lesser than green, so the bending will be lesser, so that it will refract bit lesser, so the red wave will be somewhere higher. And even it passing out of the prism also, the bending will be less than the green light. So this is what is going to happen. So the important point you need to note down is when the frequency increases, the bending or the amount of refraction will increase. And green light has higher frequency than red light. Next, figure 7.2 shows green light passing through a rectangular glass block. Red light enters the rectangular glass block shown in figure 7.3 along the same path as green light. Draw the path of red light within the rectangular glass block. And the third part is draw the path of red line after leaving the rectangular glass block. So here in the question it's mentioned this figure 7.3 shows green light passing through a rectangular glass block. So this is the path of a green light. When it is enters, it refracts or it bends, and after it leaves, it refracts again. Now you have to draw the path of red light within the rectangular glass block. Now in the same plane, if the red light is incidenting, as you know its frequency is lesser, the refraction, amount of refraction or the bending will be lesser than green light. So it is going to bend only a smaller amount. This is the second part. Third part, draw the path of the red light after leaving the rectangular block. After leaving the rectangular block, this should be parallel to the incident path here, or the incident wave or incident ray. Here this is the incident ray. So this, the wave which is emerging out from the glass blocks also should be parallel to this incident ray. So this is how you can score 2 marks. Question 8 from the topic electricity. Figure 8.1 shows a circuit. The lamp has a resistance 3 ohm. Line XY represents uniform resistance wire of resistance 6 ohm. So here this line XY is shown, which is a uniform resistance wire of total length 2 meter and a resistance of total 6 ohm. Calculate the reading on the ammeter. So you need to find out what is the reading on ammeter or what is the current in the circuit. This is what you need to find out. So we have the potential difference or voltage, that is 12 volt, and we have the different resistors. There are totally 3 resistors. One is 3 ohm, that is the resistor of lamp, and another resistor 2 ohm, and the total wire is having a resistance of 6 ohm. So there are 3 resistors which are connected in series. So you can easily calculate the total resistance and you have voltage, so that you can easily calculate current. So here voltage is 12 volt. Resistance R total is the sum of individual resistors. All resistors are connected in series, so you can directly add, that is 3 plus 2 plus 6, so that the total resistance will be 11 ohm. Now we have V and R, so that you can find out the current in the circuit. Here you have to use Ohm's law equation, or I is equal to V over R. That is 12 over 11, and the answer you will get 1.1 ampere. So the answer is 1.1 ampere. Please don't forget to write the unit of current in order to score full mark. Here first 1 mark belongs to finding the total resistance by adding all resistors and using the equation I is equal to V over R. You have to write these two equations or these two steps in order to score 1 mark, and the other 1 mark is for writing the final answer with unit. Let's go to the next part of the question. Figure 8.2 shows the circuit with a different connection to the resistance wire and an added resistor. The length XY of the whole resistance wire is 2 ohm, 2 meter. The contact is made at Q, where the distance XQ is 0.60 meter. Calculate the resistance of the circuit. So here you need to find the total resistance of the circuit. There are some changes made in this circuit comparing to the figure 8.1. So as you can see, there is already a lamp that is having a resistance 3 ohm and another resistor which is having a value 2 ohm. These two resistors, that is the lamp and 2 ohm resistors, are connected in series, or they have connected end-to-end connection. So both the resistors are connected in series, and after that there is 1.5 ohm resistor which is connected with another wire with a resistance of that wire. This wire has particular resistance and its length is 0.60 meter. So that this wire is also acting as a resistance, or this wire also has a resistance. So here you can see in this combination, so here 1.5 ohm and the resistance of this wire make a parallel combination. So in order to find the total resistance, initially you need to find the parallel combination resistance, then you can find the total resistors in series. So when I draw this more easiest way to understand, here you have a 12 volt supply and which is connected to a lamp which is having a resistance 3 ohm and which is again connected in series with another resistance of 2 ohm, then which is connected to a 1.5 ohm resistor. But this 1.5 ohm resistor is connected with a wire which is in parallel, which is also having a resistance. So this wire's resistance again I am drawing with a symbol of resistance, and this is again connected to the power supply. So here you need to find the total resistance. So there are basically 4 resistors, but we have no idea about the resistance of the wire of length 0.60 meter. But in the question it's given that for the wire of the total length 2 meter, its resistance is 6 ohm. So that you can find what is the resistance of 0.6 meter. As it's given for 2 meter, the resistance is 6 ohm. For 0.6 meter, what will be the resistance? You can cross multiply. So the resistance of 0.60 ohm will be 0.6 times 6 over 2, these many ohms. So these are the different resistors. So initially we can find the resistance of this parallel combination, that this part makes a parallel combination. So initially you can find what is the combined resistance of parallel combination, that I am representing as Rp. So you can do it in the given space. So Rp is, you can use, there are 2 equations you can use to find the total resistors in parallel combination. If there are 2 resistors, you can write down R1 times R2 over R1 plus R2. This equation you can use to find the combined parallel resistance, but if there is only 2 resistors. If there is a combination of 3 resistors in parallel, you cannot use this equation. Then you have to go for the other equation, that is 1 over Rp is equal to 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2. If you are using this equation, you will have to take the reciprocal at the end in order to find the combined resistance of parallel combination. So here I am using only first equation. So we have the resistors, that is 1.5 times the other resistor is 0.6 times 6 over 2, all divided by, you have to find the sum, that is 1.5 plus 0.6 times 6 over 2, and the answer will be 0.82. That means this parallel combination is having a total resistance of 0.82 ohm. Now there are basically 3 resistors, they are connected in series. One is 3 ohm, next one is 2 ohm, and the other one is 0.82 ohm. These resistors are in series, so to find the combined resistor, you just need to add. So the total resistance will be is equal to 3 ohm plus 2 ohm plus 0.82. So the final answer is 5.8 ohm. So 5.8 is the correct answer. You should write the answer with the unit of resistance, that is ohm. Next we can go to question number 9, and question 9 is from the topic logic gates. State the name of the logic gate with the symbol shown in figure 9.1, and it's a very easy question and the gate is NAND. Part B, state the name of the logic gate with the truth table shown in table 9.1. As you can see the truth table, there is only one input and the output is the inversion or the inverted value of the input, so that it is a NOT gate. So you can write down NOT. Let's go to part C. Figure 9.2 shows a digital circuit. Complete the truth table in table 9.2 for this circuit for all possible combinations of input. So in the figure you can see the initial inputs A and B. Then they both are connected to OR and AND gate. The output of OR and AND gate are C and D. So in the truth table, C and D values are given, And you need to find, in order to get the C and D value, what should be the values of A and B and what will be the final output which is available at E. To solve this question, you need to check each options and you have to find out what will be the possible input and outputs. So let's go to the first one where C and D value are 1. So that you can consider C is 1 and D is also 1. To understand easier, I have included the truth tables of OR gate and AND gate, as you can see. Now let's check. In order to get 1 as the output of a OR gate and as well as 1 as the output of an AND gate, what should be the inputs? So here you can check in the truth table, as both the gates output is 1 and 1. In order to get that, the input should be 1 and 1 again. So that you can understand, when you keep 1 and 1 as the inputs, then only you will get 1 as the output of a OR as well as 1 as the output of an AND. And the output of this NAND gate will be just opposite of AND gate. So that here the output is going to be 0. So here we have the values. Input is 1. A is 1, B is 1 and E is 0. So you can complete this table. Now we can look at the second row where the C output is 1 and D value is 0, or at D the value is 0. So now again we can look at the truth table and check what would be the output of 1 and 0, or what will be the value that output of OR should get 1 and output of AND should get 0. So that you can choose. There are two options, either this, where you can see OR gate output is 1 and AND gate output is 0. We can take these values now. In order to get this, the input should be 1 should be 0 and the other input should be 1. So that I am going to write here A, let it be 1, then B should be 0. Then the output of OR you will definitely get 1 and output of AND gate you will get 0. Now the value at E will be the NAND of 1 and 0, so that you will get 1. So you can write down 0, 1 and the output is 1. And for the next option is also it is 1, 0. So the other possibility, you can just change the inputs as 1, 0. So again you will get the same values at C and D and the E output will be again 1. And the last option, you should get 0, 0 for both, so that both the inputs should be 0. Then only you will get 0 at C and D, or at the output of AND and OR, only when the inputs are 0, 0. And the last output will be 1. So in order to solve this logic gate question, you should be familiar with the truth table of OR the gates, so that you can score full mark. Now let's go to next question. Question number 10. Figure 10.1 is a simplified top view of a flat coil. There is an alternating current AC in the coil. Describe the magnetic effect of this alternating current. So here the main function is, whenever there is a current is flowing in the coil, it will become as a magnet and it's called electromagnet. So whenever there is a current, the coil behave as a magnet, so that it will produce magnetic field lines. So it produces magnetic field lines, and this field line direction depending on the direction of flow of current. But as you can see, the current which is connected to this coil is alternating current. As the current is alternating, that means the direction of the current keep changing. If it's pointing upward, the next moment it will be pointing downwards, so that the field line's direction will also change. So this is what you need to write down. The current causes a magnetic field lines around the coil. As it's AC, the field line's direction will keep altering. So you can write the first point, current in the coil produces the magnetic field. And the last point you can write down, as the current is AC, the direction of the magnetic field alters, or the direction of the magnetic field lines alters. These are the 2 points you need to write down in order to score 2 marks. Let's go to the next part. Figure 10.2 shows a pan placed above the coil. The base of the pan is made of steel. State what quantity is induced in the base of the pan. As we have already seen, when the current is passing through the coil produces the magnetic field lines around the coil, and these field lines, the direction is keep changing as it's an AC current. Because of this, there will be induced EMF in the pan, and it is due to electromagnetic induction. The reason I will repeat, as the pan is connected or close to the coil and there is a current, AC current is passing through the coil will produce a magnetic field lines, and this magnetic field lines directions are keep changing. Because of this change in the field lines, and this is connected to the pan, there will be a induced EMF in the pan, and this phenomenon is known as electromagnetic induction. So that here they have simply asked, state what quantity is induced in the base of the pan. It is nothing but EMF. There will be EMF induced. So you just need to write down EMF or induced EMF. Part C. The pan contains water. State and explain the effect of the quantity induced in part B on the temperature of the water in the pan. So as we have already seen, there will be an induced EMF in the pan. What will happen to the water in the pan? Or what will happen to the temperature of the water in the pan due to this induced EMF? This is what asked in the last part. So you can write down, due to this induced EMF, there will be a current in the pan. So that is the first point you can write, due to this induced EMF, which is already mentioned. So the remaining part you need to write, that is, there will be a current in the pan, current in the base of the pan, because the base of the pan is only contacting with the coil, and this current will produce a thermal energy. So it will produce thermal energy in the pan, so that the water temperature increases. Hence the water temperature also increases. As you know, the water is only inside the same pan. So here you need to mention there will be a current in the base of the pan because of the induced EMF. It will produce thermal energy. Whenever there is a current, there will be a production of thermal energy. So this is the second point you need to write, so that the water temperature will increase. These are the 3 points you have to write down in order to score 3 marks. Question 11 is from nuclear physics. The isotope hydrogen 1 has a proton number of 1 and a nucleon number of 1. So there is a hydrogen atom which is having a proton number 1. Proton number is nothing but atomic number, and nucleon number is also 1. That means the number of protons plus neutron is also 1. Two isotopes of helium are helium-3 and helium-4. Helium-3 has a proton number of 2 and a nucleon number of 3. So we have in helium which is having a proton number 2 and nucleon number 3. And helium-4 has nucleon number 4. So since it is helium, the proton number will be remaining same, that will be 2, and the nucleon number has changed and it is 4. Complete the table 1.1 for neutral atoms of these isotopes of helium. So that you need to write down the number of neutrons in helium-3. So in helium-3, the number of neutrons, as you know, the number of proton is 2 and number of nucleons represent number of proton plus neutron, that is 3. So that the number of neutron must be 1. Then only you will get 2 plus 1 is 3. So that you can write down the value must be 1. Likewise for helium-4. So look at helium-4, the proton number which is 2 and the total mass number, that is nothing but proton plus neutron is 4, as you can see, and we already discussed the proton number is 2, so that the neutron number also must be 2 in order to get the total sum of 4. So for helium the number of neutrons are 2. Next, the number of electrons. So the number of electrons is nothing but number of protons. And you know for helium-3 there are 2 protons and for helium-4 there are again 2 protons. So that the number of electrons also will be 2 and 2. So you can write down 2, 2. And next is mass compared to the neutral atom of hydrogen 1. So you should compare the mass of hydrogen. As we have already seen, hydrogen is 1, 1 and the helium you have 2, 3 and helium 2, 4. Now you need to compare the masses. So we can compare the mass of hydrogen and helium-3 and there is a difference of 2. Likewise again hydrogen and helium-4. There is a difference of 2 again. 3 again. So you can write down for helium the mass is 2 more than the hydrogen and for helium-4 the mass is 3 more than the hydrogen. Last part, an experiment takes place in a laboratory shielded from all background radiations. A sample of radioactive material is wrapped in aluminum foil of thickness 0.1 mm. A detector of ionizing radiation placed 1 cm from the foil records a reading. A piece of aluminum of thickness 5 mm is placed between the detector and the foil. The detector reading drops to 0. State and explain any type of radiation passing through the aluminum foil. So here you need to compare the penetration power of 3 radiations, that are alpha, beta and gamma, and you need to write the answer. Beta would be stopped by 5 mm thick aluminum, alpha would be stopped by 0.1 mm aluminum foil, and gamma would not be stopped by 5 mm aluminum. The reason is alpha is having the higher penetration power, then beta, and the least penetration power is for alpha. So the alpha particle won't be even penetrate to the aluminum of the first aluminum of thickness 0.1 mm. So these are the 3 points you need to write down in order to score 3 marks. Thank you for watching the video. For more past paper solutions, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.